Hi class, welcome back to baking school. I am Kristen Baker Betty Hoffman, the baking instructor over at bakerbetty.com. Now today we are on lesson 6 of the Baking Fundamentals course, and today we're diving into the sweet stuff. We're going to talk all about sugar, its functions in baking, and the different types of sugar that you most commonly encounter in baking and the differences between all of them. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first things first, let's talk about what is sugar. So sugar is actually a molecule called sucrose that is found in all plants, but it's actually found in the most high quantities in sugar cane and sugar beets. So pretty much all sugar that you will ever bake with comes from these two plants. And you might not know this, but if you ever bought a bag of sugar that was not specifically marked as cane sugar, chances are you actually purchased beet sugar. But cane sugar and beet sugar are actually chemically identical. So now that you know exactly what sugar is, let's talk about all of the roles it plays in baking. Now you might be thinking, of course sugar sweetens our baked goods, but it actually plays huge roles in the structure and the texture of our baked goods. So let's go through each role it plays in baking. Sugar sweetens and adds flavor to our baked goods. So while granulated sugar is actually a pretty neutral flavor and really only adds some sweetness to our baked goods, other sugars like brown sugar not only add sweetness but do add some depth of flavor to the baked good. Sugar promotes browning. Now, because of the way sugar caramelizes when it is heated, baked goods made with sugar will brown more readily than baked goods made without sugar. To demonstrate this, I actually made 4 batches of just a very simple shortbread cookie. The one on the left here is made without any sugar at all, and then there are increasing levels of sugar as you go down the line. So this last cookie here on the right is made with a very high ratio of sugar and is much more brown in color than the cookie made on the left. And these were all baked at the same time and temperature, so you can really see a huge difference with this. Sugar holds on to moisture. So sugar actually has hygroscopic properties, which means that it grabs and holds on to moisture. So baked goods made with sugar actually stale less quickly than baked goods made without any sugar. So I like to think about this by comparing a baguette, which is made without any sugar at all, and a cake that was made with a lot of sugar. Now, if you were to leave both of these two things out at room temperature overnight, in the morning, that baguette is going to be so stale that you could likely break a tooth on it if you tried to take a bite. Now, the cake will have also begun staling, but it is not going to be nearly at the staleness level of the baguette, and that is because of the hygroscopic properties of the sugar in that cake. Sugar tenderizes. Now, because sugar is hygroscopic in nature, it is going to suck in a lot of liquid in the baked good and leave less liquid readily available for flour to interact with and develop gluten with. So it actually slows down gluten production in baked goods. Now, gluten production is the thing that makes baked goods very chewy and tough. So baked goods made with sugar actually tend to be much more tender than baked goods made without sugar. Sugar leavens. Now, sugar plays a huge role in the leavening in our baked goods. When you think about creaming butter and sugar together, the thing that really makes that butter mixture very light and fluffy is the sugar is giving the stabilization for the web of air that is beaten into the butter and sugar. Now, additionally, because sugar is hygroscopic and is holding on to all of that moisture, it gives a structure for gas expansion in the oven to really rise and spread our baked goods. Now, you might have noticed when I showed you those cookies before that the one made without sugar did not spread at all. It completely maintained its shape. But as you move down the line, the cookie with the high ratio of sugar really spread quite a bit compared to the cookie without sugar. Now, I'll also show you these muffins that I made. I made 3 different batches of muffins. This first one on the left here is made without any sugar at all. The one in the middle is made with a normal amount of sugar that a muffin recipe calls for, and then this last one here is actually made with double the amount of sugar. Now you can see really how much leavening happened in this muffin. Actually, too much leavening happened, so much so that it spread outward and instead of completely up. This is what it looks like when too much leavening happens in your baked good. Sugar stabilizes. Now when sugar is beaten into another ingredient, such as when making meringue with egg whites or making whipped cream with heavy cream, it begins dissolving into that substance and gets trapped into little air pockets that are being beaten into the ingredient. It essentially serves as this little cushion between all of the air bubbles, which really helps stabilize the air that has been beaten in. And lastly, sugar garnishes. So we love to use sugar to garnish our baked goods, whether it's sprinkling powdered sugar to finish the top of a pastry, or sprinkling sanding sugar to add some crunch, or even caramelizing sugar to make some kind of fancy sugar decoration. Sugar can be used in all kinds of ways to garnish our baked goods. So let's talk about the most common sugars that you will use in baking. Granulated sugar is a refined sugar that is white in color and is the most common type of sugar used in baking. When raw sugar is refined, the naturally occurring molasses is removed and a white sugar with fine crystals is produced. Brown sugar is granulated sugar that has molasses added back into it, producing a fine crystal sugar that is moist and has more depth of flavor. Light brown sugar has a small amount of molasses, while dark brown sugar has a larger amount of molasses. Molasses is even more hygroscopic in nature than plain granulated sugar, so brown sugar keeps baked goods moist and adds chewiness. Powdered sugar, which is also called confectioner's sugar, icing sugar, or 10x sugar, is a very finely ground white sugar. Because powdered sugar is so finely ground, it is also combined with a starch like cornstarch to prevent it from clumping. Powdered sugar dissolves extremely quickly, and because of its fine texture and the addition of cornstarch, it can create a very tender baked good. So now I feel like we should address the topic of substituting sugars in baking. So now that you do have a good understanding of how important sugar is in the structure and the texture of your baked goods, I want to encourage you to substitute sugars with caution because you are going to get varied results. But one of the exciting things about understanding how sugar truly does work in baking, it gives you the opportunity to really experiment and try different things if you are interested in trying to create your own recipes. One of the things I should note is that if you are going to try to substitute sugar in baking, you really want to do it by weight instead of by volume, because all of these different types of sugars do have a different amount of weight by volume. So you're going to be the most accurate if you do substitute by weight. So that is it for today's lesson. I hope you learned something about how important sugar is in baking, not just for sweetness, but for the structure and texture of your baked good. And now I want to give you your homework assignment. So I'm actually going to give you two options for homework for this assignment. The first option is that I would love for you to try your hand at making an angel food cake. Now the reason I chose this particular baked good is because it has very few ingredients in it, and sugar is one of the main ingredients in it. And sugar plays a huge role in angel food cake for the way the baked good is leavened and how moist and tender it becomes. Angel food cake has 0 fat in it and 0 chemical leavening. So the sugar and the egg whites are actually going to do all of the leavening, and then the sugar is really what's going to keep that cake tender and moist. So it's such an excellent example of how important sugar is in baking. Now, if you're not really interested in making an angel food cake, then I'd encourage you to try baking anything that calls for you to cream, butter, and sugar together. Now, when you cream butter and sugar together, you want to make sure that your butter is at room temperature, and then you're going to cream it together until it is truly very light and fluffy and very pale in color. Pay attention during this process, watch how much this mixture changes, and be mindful about how much of that is the sugar doing the work. Thanks guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.